Corporations are not necessarily better than the government at providing goods or services. In my last video, I talked about a few things that the ideal government ought to do. Among those things was providing education and healthcare. The reason why those topics are seen as controversial is because many people believe that private companies will be able to provide healthcare and education better than government. I hold the opinion that while companies should be able to compete in certain industries, they are not the best for education and healthcare. First, we have to understand the theory behind the reason why people think the companies are better than the government. It's thought that since companies are in competition with each other, they are always driven to supply the best products/services because the customers would obviously buy the better products and thus give their money to the corporation that provides those products. The companies who fail to do so will go bankrupt, meaning that only the best possible quality is provided. Now notice how the interest of the company is not aligned with the interest of the customer. The company's goal is not to help the people. Its goal is to get as much money as it can, as that is the best way of ensuring its survival. This means that their services are oriented to those who can afford them, not to those who need them. Imagine that a child from a poor family gets some sort of life-threatening illness that is treatable but costly. The company would choose the option that would cost less money. They would compare the cost from the bad publicity against the cost of the operation, and while sometimes they would decide to treat the child because the public backlash would be too big, sometimes they wouldn't, and the child would die. Under such a system, money talks, not the people. Under a democratic government, however, money is not the main way that the government maintains power, although it is still a large part. The ruling party would only have power so long as the people would approve of them, meaning that even if it would cost more money to treat the child instead of refusing treatment and facing the public backlash, the opinion of the people is more important than the money. This means that it's significantly less likely for the government to refuse treatment in comparison to the company. Companies have the AI problem. We can't fully align them with our collective goals as they will only go after money first and foremost. While they might help the people, they will only do this sometimes, as providing a quality service is only an instrumental goal to the actual main goal of gaining money to sustain the business. One might argue that the government healthcare would be filled with inefficiencies and there wouldn't be any competition to keep it in check. But in a democracy, as I have described in my first video, the people have so much power that they sort of become the competition. The government wants to stay in power, so they provide healthcare, but the people would vote them out of power if the healthcare is not up to the standards of the people, which puts the pressure on the government to always improve. Just as a company might go out of business if they fail to improve, a representative will be voted out of power if they fail to improve. Thus, you get an effective system where everyone keeps the government in check and the government provides good healthcare without the worry that they will do something that people would disapprove of. Now, that's just the economic and moral reason. But the more practical reason is that having an organization overlooking a pandemic is better than having many little organizations each doing their own thing. While some companies would cooperate, it would not reach the same level of one single organization overlooking everything. That's about it for healthcare. Much of the same could be said about education, but instead of the poor child dying, they will on average not become a high-skilled laborer and thus live a bad life. And for practical reasons, a more educated workforce gives rise to more output and in general prosperity for all. If it was up to companies to educate children, they would only do so for the ones able to pay, or they would do it for a specific company that needs workers with a specific skill set. Basically, if your dad's not rich and you're not lucky enough to be among the few to be chosen by the company, you're not getting an education. That was the case throughout most of history. It's only in the last few centuries that normal people who are not rich get to have an education. So what do we get? We get a society that is, as a whole, less efficient and less productive because less people are educated and thus less people are able to work in high-paying fields. I believe the best way to go forward is to have a bit of both, as in have public education and private education. Here's an example. If we were to have a public healthcare system that acts as a baseline that every private company needs to meet, we could have competition on three levels. We could have the people fighting the government, the companies fighting each other, and the companies fighting the government in order to provide better services. But that's just what I think. Tell me what you think in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more, please subscribe and hit the like button. Well, that's about it. I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, night, depending on when you're watching this video. And bye-bye. Subscribe.